the AI monitoring station Alpha 7 had been listening to the cosmos for over 3 centuries. Nestled on a desolate moon at the outer rim of galactic Concord territory, its vast arrays of quantum receivers and dimensional resonance detectors had cataloged everything from solar storms to the subtle gravitational ripples of passing starships. Today, however, it detected something entirely new. Anomalous reality fluctuation detected in Sector 9 Theta, Cygnus X-1 system. The AI reported its voice synthesized to sound reassuringly calm despite the unprecedented nature of its discovery. Pattern matches known cosmic phenomenon. Reality coherence dropping by 17% within affected radius. Across the vastness of space, Marshall Kalin of the Xylar hegemony received the alert with characteristic skepticism. The reptilian commander's scales shimmered under the harsh lights of his border outpost command center. The Xylar had been members of the Galactic Concord for millennia, yet never truly felt accepted by the older races. They compensated with military precision and unwavering suspicion. Another false alarm from that antiquated human AI, he hissed to his adjutant. They insist on using their primitive technology instead of upgrading to proper Concord standards. His adjutant, a younger Xylar whose scales had not yet hardened to the metallic sheen of maturity, approached with caution. The readings are being confirmed by 3 other monitoring stations. Marshall, the anomaly is expanding. Meanwhile, in the gleaming central hub of the Galactic Concord on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Valorum rubbed his temples in frustration. Another interminable diplomatic session had concluded with nothing accomplished. As humanity's senior representative, he'd spent decades navigating the labyrinthine politics of the Concord, where species that measured their civilizations in millions of years regarded humans as barely evolved primates playing with technology they couldn't possibly comprehend. A discreet notification flashed across his neural implant. The message's priority override triggered an involuntary quickening of his heartbeat. Something was happening in Cygnus X-1, a system hosting a critical communications relay and several million colonists. The ambassador's thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of his secure communicator. Valorum, he answered tersely. Sir, this is Central Intelligence. We have a situation developing that requires your immediate attention. An anomaly has appeared near Cygnus X-1. Initial scans are inconclusive. Define inconclusive, Valorum demanded, already moving toward his private chambers. The instruments are returning contradictory data. Some readings suggest a massive gravitational distortion. Others indicate a complete absence of matter and energy. Some sensors simply stopped functioning upon targeting the phenomenon. A sudden silence fell across the diplomatic chamber as holographic displays throughout the Concord Center flickered simultaneously. On every screen, the same image appeared, a swirling distortion in space near Cygnus X-1, a reality-bending maelstrom that defied understanding. And emerging from its center, a ship. Even through the distorted transmission, the vessel was immediately recognizable to Valorum. The distinctive silhouette of a United Earth Defense Force exploration vessel, specifically the UEDS Odyssey, a deep space explorer that had vanished without trace during a routine mapping expedition 11 years earlier. Except it wasn't the same ship anymore. The Odyssey's once familiar contours had been transformed into something that hurt the eyes to look upon. Its hull seemed to bend light around it in impossible ways, reflecting and absorbing radiation in patterns that defied known physics. Angular protrusions extended from its main body in non-Euclidean geometries that the mind instinctively rejected. It emitted energy signatures that danced across the electromagnetic spectrum in complex, seemingly deliberate patterns. Valorum felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never seen anything like this. The ship was clearly of human origin, yet utterly alien. Alert the United Earth Defense Force, he ordered. Inform them that the Odyssey has returned. Marshal Kalin watched the footage with mounting alarm. Deploy the 7th Fleet to establish a containment perimeter. No vessel approaches without my direct authorization. All communication attempts must be routed through our cryptographic filters. That thing is not to be trusted. Throughout the Concorde, similar reactions cascaded through command chains. Fleets were mobilized, defensive postures adopted, and panicked civilians began evacuating systems near Cygnus X-1. The initial attempts to establish contact with the transformed vessel failed spectacularly. Probes vanished upon approaching within a certain radius. Scan beams were deflected or simply ceased to exist. Attempts to approach with manned vessels ended with the ships finding themselves inexplicably off course, their navigation systems reporting they had never deviated from their intended coordinates despite being hundreds of thousands of kilometers from their target. Most alarmingly, the Odyssey made no hostile moves. It simply hung in space, a silent monument to the unknown, seemingly content to be observed from a distance. When a particularly bold military vessel attempted to lock weapons, its targeting systems went offline, and its power core initiated an emergency shutdown that its engineers couldn't explain. The ship's silence only amplified the growing fear throughout the Concorde. Theories spread like wildfire. The vessel was possessed by an alien intelligence. It had been caught in some kind of temporal anomaly. It was a weapon deployed by Earth against the Concorde. None could agree on the threat it represented, only that it was a threat. On Earth, the alert reached United Earth Defense Force headquarters with unprecedented urgency. General Evelyn Reed, Supreme Commander of UEDF, stood before the holographic projection of the transformed Odyssey, her weathered face betraying no emotion despite the turmoil within. "Confirmation?" she asked simply. 97% certainty, General, her intelligence chief replied. Hull markings, although distorted, match Odyssey's registry. Quantum signature resonance patterns are consistent with its original drive system, though significantly altered. It's her, but changed beyond our understanding. Reed had personally selected the Odyssey's crew for their deep space mission 11 years earlier. Captain Anya Sharma had been one of UEDF's most promising officers, her analytical mind matched only by her unwavering determination. The thought that she and her crew might have somehow survived all this time, transformed into something beyond recognition, filled Reed with both hope and dread. "General, we're receiving a transmission from the Concorde Council. They're demanding an explanation." Reed's mouth tightened. "Tell them we're as surprised as they are and are investigating. Offer full cooperation." Her second-in-command raised an eyebrow. "Are we actually offering full cooperation?" "No," Reed said flatly, "but it'll buy us time." She turned to her communications officer. "Has the Odyssey attempted to contact us directly?" "Nothing on standard channels, General." "But," the officer hesitated, "we are detecting an unusual quantum encryption pattern embedded in the background radiation surrounding the vessel. It appears to be directed specifically at UEDF headquarters. Isolate it. Secure room now." Minutes later, in a chamber shielded from all electromagnetic surveillance, Reed and her most trusted advisors watched as the encrypted message was decoded. The quantum patterns resolved into a simple text message. "We have changed. The silence is coming. Prepare." Reed read the message twice, a cold knot forming in her stomach. "Find out what the hell the silence is, and get me a secure channel to Ambassador Valorum." This situation just got considerably more complicated. The message from the Odyssey sparked immediate division within Earth's leadership. The Pragmatic Coalition, led by Economic Director Harlan Frost, argued for immediate compliance with any Concorde demands. "If we hand over the Odyssey, or whatever it's become, we maintain our standing in the Concorde and avoid potential conflict," Frost insisted during an emergency session. "We cannot risk Earth security over one lost ship, no matter how mysteriously it has returned." General Reed's faction took the opposite position. "The Odyssey was one of our ships. Its crew were Earth citizens. We have a duty to them, and if they're warning us about a threat called the Silence, we damn well better listen." President Torres, caught between these opposing views, turned to Ambassador Valorum, who had returned to Earth for emergency consultations. "What's the mood in the Concorde, Ambassador?" Valorum chose his words carefully. Hence, Madam President, the more militaristic factions, particularly the Xyler under Marshal Kalin, are pushing for immediate action against the Odyssey. They view it as a potential weapon or technological advantage Earth is deploying. Others are more cautious, but equally concerned. No one has seen anything like this vessel before, and it defies all known physics. And your recommendation? Buy time. Neither capitulate nor defy the Concorde outright. The Odyssey clearly returned for a reason, and until we know what that reason is, we should avoid irreversible decisions. While the political drama unfolded, subtle signs of a greater threat began to emerge across the galaxy. AI Alpha 7 detected increasing data voids in its cosmic observations, regions where information simply ceased to exist. Astronomical phenomena began behaving erratically. Stars flickered in patterns that defied stellar physics. Nebulae reshaped themselves in ways that suggested deliberate manipulation rather than natural processes. Among the Elkarai, a species known for their limited telepathic abilities, reports emerged of whispers from beyond and inexplicable sensations of dread. Their representatives to the Concorde spoke of collective nightmares featuring a hunger that consumes thought itself. On a remote archaeological expedition, researchers uncovered writings from civilization that had vanished 50,000 years earlier. The fragmentary text spoke of cycle-bound devourers and the final emptiness that silences all. These disparate phenomena went largely unnoticed amid the crisis surrounding the Odyssey, connected only in classified reports that reached General Reed's desk through UEDF's intelligence network. She was reviewing these reports when her security chief burst into her office. "General, we have a breach." Reed was on her feet instantly. "Where?" "Sublevel 19. Security systems registered no intrusion, but cameras show 3 individuals who simply appeared. They're not responding to challenges, but haven't made any aggressive moves." The security feed showed 3 figures standing calmly in one of UEDF's most secure research facilities. Reed immediately recognized the woman at the center of the group, Captain Anya Sharma. Yet, like her ship, Sharma had changed. Her posture was unnaturally still, her gaze focused with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the camera. Beside her stood a tall man Reed identified as Dr. Elias Vance, the Odyssey's chief science officer. His body appeared to have undergone the most visible transformations, with subtle biomechanical augmentations visible beneath his skin. The third figure was partially obscured, but appeared to be Navigator Lian Zhang, though her features had taken on an almost crystalline quality. "They bypassed every security measure we have," the security chief said, all mixing with fear in his voice. "They didn't disable them. They simply ignored them." "Where exactly are they?" "The quantum physics lab." Reed nodded. "I'm going down there. Alert no one else for now." 20 minutes later, Reed faced Captain Sharma across a conference table in a secure meeting room. Despite the extraordinary circumstances, Reed had insisted on protocol. The visitors had been scanned, though the scanners returned incomprehensible results, and the room secured against surveillance. "Captain Sharma," Reed began, "it's been 11 years. I think you owe us an explanation." Sharma's gaze seemed to focus on something beyond the visible spectrum before settling on Reed's face. "General, from your perspective, it has been 11 years. For us." She paused, as if struggling to translate a concept. "Time became non-linear during our encounter." Dr. Vance stepped forward. As he moved, faint patterns of energy briefly illuminated beneath his skin. "Our mission encountered what we can only describe as a tier between dimensional planes. We were drawn into a space where conventional physics doesn't apply. There, we encountered the silence," Sharma continued. "Not a species or civilization as we understand such terms, but an entity that exists by consuming reality itself." "Consuming reality?" Reed echoed skeptically. "It devours information, complexity, the very fabric of existence," Vance explained. "It doesn't destroy matter in the conventional sense. It erases the fundamental information that allows matter to exist at all." Navigator Zhang spoke for the first time, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that seemed to resonate with objects in the room. We should have been erased as well, but we were intercepted by another transdimensional entity, the Interveners. The Interveners exist on a higher plane of reality, Sharma explained. They've been fighting the silence across multiple realities and dimensions for what might be considered eternity. They saved us, but at a cost. They reconfigured us, enhanced us, integrated us with technology and knowledge beyond anything this galaxy has developed. Vance indicated his altered body. We were transformed to serve as a defense against the silence, which has now begun to intrude into this reality. Our return is both warning and preparation. Reed took a moment to process this extraordinary information. Why not contact the Concord directly? Why all this secrecy? Sharma's expression hardened. The Concord couldn't handle the truth. The nature of the silence is such that merely comprehending its existence creates vulnerability. Mass panic would accelerate its manifestation. Certain knowledge must be compartmentalized. The Odyssey itself, Vance added, has become a semi-organic, semi-dimensional entity. The ship's systems are now partly merged with higher-dimensional mathematics and partially conscious. It serves as both our vessel and our primary weapon against the silence. And what exactly do you need from Earth? Reed asked. Understanding, Sharma replied. Time. And eventually, coordination when the silence makes its first move. It's already beginning to affect this reality. The anomalies your scientists have been detecting are early symptoms of its approach. Reed leaned forward. I need something concrete, Captain. The Concord is on the verge of taking military action against your ship, and I need more than metaphysical threats to justify protecting you. Sharma nodded to Vance, who raised his hand. A holographic projection appeared above the table, not projected from any device, but seemingly emanating from Vance himself. It showed a region of space that Reed recognized as the Perseus Arm. This system will be the first to experience an erasure event, Vance said, within approximately 72 hours. Nothing in this galaxy can prevent it. We can only prepare for what comes after. Reed studied the projection, recognizing the system as Helios 9, home to one of the Concord's primary communication hubs. If you're right about this, it could change everything. If you're wrong, we understand the position we've put you in, General, Sharma said. But the silence is coming, whether the Concord believes it or not. As the Odyssey's representatives continued their clandestine meeting on Earth, diplomatic tensions reached a breaking point. The Concord Council, under pressure from hardline factions, issued an ultimatum. Earth must surrender the transformed vessel for examination within 36 hours or face sanctions and military intervention. Ambassador Valorum, once again at the Concord headquarters, fought desperately for more time. This vessel is of Earth origin. We have the right to investigate it ourselves before submitting to Concord authority on this matter. Marshal Kalen's holographic projection dominated the chamber. A vessel that defies physics itself is not merely a matter of national sovereignty, Ambassador. It represents a potential threat to the entire galaxy. The fact that Earth refuses immediate cooperation only heightens our suspicions. We are cooperating, Valorum insisted. But we need time to understand what's happened to our own ship and crew. Your time has run out, declared High Counselor Mizdara of the Althean Dominion, her crystalline form reflecting light in patterns that indicated severe disapproval in her species' visual language. The Council has voted. Surrender the vessel, or face the consequences. President Torres received the ultimatum with grim resolve. After consulting with General Reed and reviewing the evidence provided by the Odyssey's crew, she made her decision. Tell the Concord that while we respect their concern, we cannot comply with their demand at this time. The Odyssey and its crew are under Earth's protection until we complete our investigation. The response was swift and severe. The Concord declared immediate sanctions against all Earth interests and deployed a massive military blockade around the Sol system and the region containing the Odyssey. The blockade consisted of hundreds of vessels from various Concord member species, forming an impressive display of unified strength. Yet when several ships attempted to approach the Odyssey for a closer inspection, they encountered the vessel's extraordinary defensive capabilities. The Cygnus Vanguard, a Xylar battlecruiser, fired warning shots that curve away from the Odyssey as if deflected by an invisible shield. The Althean research vessel Cosmic Seeker attempted to deploy sensor drones, only to have them enter what appear to be temporal loops, repeating the same trajectory endlessly without ever reaching their target. Most dramatically, when the Vicarii dreadnought Unyielding Justice powered up its main weapons array, the entire ship experienced a complete systems failure, leaving it drifting helplessly until the Odyssey itself generated an energy field that gently pushed the massive vessel back to a safe distance from the anomaly's edge. These displays of seemingly effortless defensive power only intensified the Concorde's fear and resolve. Marshal Kalin, now given emergency authority over the containment operation, began planning more drastic measures. If conventional weapons cannot penetrate its defenses, he told his war council, then perhaps a concentrated quantum disruption strike from multiple vectors simultaneously might overwhelm whatever protection it possesses. Before such plans could be implemented, however, the silence made its first move. The Helios 9 system disappeared. Not an explosion of light and energy, not in a gravitational collapse, but in an absence that defied comprehension. One moment, the bustling system with its communication hub, research stations, and 3 inhabited planets existed. The next, sensors detected nothing but empty space where once had been stars, planets, and 23 million sentient beings. Vessels on the edge of the system reported no explosion, no shockwave, no radiation burst, just a spreading void that seemed to consume light itself. Those that ventured too close to investigate simply ceased transmission. Remote probes returned impossible readings. Space that contained neither matter nor energy, regions where the fundamental constants of physics appeared to fluctuate randomly, zones where time itself seemed to flow in multiple directions simultaneously. The Concorde fell into chaos. Emergency sessions devolved into accusations and panic. Some blamed the Odyssey for triggering whatever had consumed Helios 9. Others finally began to consider that the human vessel might have been warning of a genuine threat. Many simply refused to accept the reality of what had occurred, insisting that it must be some kind of massive sensor malfunction or elaborate deception. General Reed watched the unfolding panic with grim satisfaction. "Send this footage to the Concorde Council," she ordered, forwarding the recordings of the Helios 9 erasure. "Tell them Captain Sharma is prepared to brief selected representatives on the nature of the threat and potential countermeasures." Within hours, even Marshal Kalin was requesting information. The blockade remained in place, but its focus had shifted. No longer primarily concerned with containing the Odyssey, the Concorde forces now looked outward, watching for signs of whatever had consumed an entire star system without warning. Captain Sharma, Dr. Vance, and Navigator Zhang returned to the Odyssey through the same inexplicable means they had used to appear on Earth. Before departing, they shared their plan with General Reed and a select group of military and scientific leaders. "The silence cannot be defeated through conventional means," Sharma explained, standing before a holographic representation of the Odyssey's transformed systems. "It doesn't exist within our framework of reality, which is precisely why it can erase portions of it without resistance." Vance manipulated the hologram, revealing complex structures within the ship that seemed to shift between different geometric states. The Odyssey now functions as both a reality anchor and a conceptual modulator. Using technology provided by the interveners, we can create what we call a localized stability pocket, a region of space-time where we temporarily rewrite and reinforce the fundamental rules of physics. "The plan," Sharma continued, "is to lure or force the silence into this LSP, where its amorphous nature and reality-erasing capabilities will be weakened or neutralized. This will allow us to either disconnect it from our reality or redirect it." Reed frowned at the proposal. "And how exactly do you lure something like this?" Zhang's crystalline features caught the light as she spoke. The silence is drawn to complexity and information density. The Odyssey, as it exists now, represents an irresistible target, a nexus of information from multiple realities, protected in a way the silence has never encountered before. So you're using yourselves as bait, Reed observed. Essentially, Sharma acknowledged. But it's extraordinarily dangerous. The process will push the Odyssey to its limits. There's a significant risk of self-destruction or causing irreparable tears in the local space-time fabric. What do you need from us? Reed asked. Energy, Vance replied. Data, quantum computational support, and most importantly, coordination with whatever Concord forces are willing to assist. They can't engage the silence directly, but they can help evacuate vulnerable systems and contain the aftermath. Reed nodded. I'll do what I can. But the Concord is in disarray after Helios 9. Some factions still blame you for what happened. They'll understand soon enough, Sharma said grimly. The silence has made its first move. The next will come more quickly. 2 days later, long-range sensors detected a disturbance near the site of the former Helios 9 system. The emptiness that had replaced the system appeared to be expanding, not uniformly, but in tendril-like projections that seemed to probe surrounding space. The Odyssey moved into position, placing itself directly in the path of the expanding void. Concord vessels maintained a safe distance, their commanders torn between fascination, terror, and lingering suspicion of the human ship's intentions. From Reed's command center on Earth, the operation was monitored through quantum-entangled communicators that the Odyssey crew had provided, the only technology capable of transmitting information reliably in the presence of the silence. Odyssey is initiating LSP formation, reported Reed's communications officer. Energy readings are off the charts, General. Whatever they're doing, it's bending reality in ways our instruments can barely measure. On the view screen, the Odyssey underwent a startling transformation. Its already altered hull began to shift and reconfigure, plates separating and restructuring in patterns that hurt the human eye to follow. Brilliant energy fields of impossible colors formed around the vessel, creating nested layers of what appeared to be selectively modified physics. Inside the Odyssey, the enhanced crew experienced reality in ways no human mind was designed to comprehend. Captain Sharma stood on the bridge, though bridge no longer adequately described the chamber. The solid structures had partially dissolved into flowing information patterns, while crew interfaces had become direct neural connections to the ship's semi-conscious systems. Sharma could perceive multiple timelines simultaneously, feeling the strain on the very fabric of existence as the LSP formed around them. Each crew member had been modified to fulfill specialized functions in this impossible battle. Vance manipulated conceptual fields that determined which physical laws applied within the pocket, while Zhang navigated through probability spaces, keeping the ship anchored between dimensional planes. LSP stabilizing, Vance reported, his voice overlaid with harmonic patterns that conveyed additional data to the ship's systems. Phase matching at 87% and holding. The silence is responding, Zhang announced. Probability collapse detected on our starboard conceptual plane. The emptiness that had once been Helios 9 seemed to notice the Odyssey. The void's tendrils withdrew from their exploratory patterns and converged toward the ship, moving with sudden purpose. It's coming, Sharma confirmed. All systems to maximum configuration. Prepare for conceptual warfare. The battle that ensued bore no resemblance to conventional space combat. There were no weapons fired, no exchanges of energy blasts or physical projectiles. Instead, it was a clash of fundamental principles, a war fought with the underlying mathematics of existence itself. The silence manifested as an absence that attacked the very coherence of the LSP, attempting to unravel the carefully constructed pocket of stable reality. Where it touched the boundary of the LSP, reality itself seemed to fray and dissolve. The Odyssey responded by continuously recalibrating the parameters of the pocket, strengthening weakened areas while performing dimensional slides to avoid being locked in place. The strain on the ship was enormous, systems overloaded, sparking with energies that didn't belong in normal space-time. While crew members experienced cognitive fragmentation as their enhanced minds struggled to process multiple layers of reality simultaneously. Port dimensional anchor failing. Zhang called out, her crystalline features now glowing with internal energy. Reality coherence dropping to 63%. Rerouting conceptual stabilizers. Vance responded, his augmented body now visibly channeling energies that course through the ship itself. Applying probability solidification to affected sectors. Sharma felt the ship's pain as if it were her own. The Odyssey had become more than a vessel. It was an extension of her crew, a living entity, fighting for survival. Through their shared consciousness, she directed the ship's responses, manipulating probability, entropy, and fundamental constants within the LSP to destabilize the silence. It's probing for weaknesses in our concept structure, Sharma announced. Shifting attack vector to target our temporal coherence. The battle intensified. The silence, finding its usual method of reality erasure resisted, began attacking the LSP from multiple vectors simultaneously. It created zones of causality reversal, trying to unravel the LSP from its inception point. It generated probability cascades that threatened to collapse the pocket into a singularity of pure potentiality. The Odyssey countered with techniques taught by the interveners, compressing time into dense packets that could be selectively phased in and out of the affected dimensions, creating localized information redundancies that preserved reality's structure even when parts were erased, establishing quantum resonance patterns that reinforced the fundamental constants within the LSP. Outside observers could perceive only fragments of this incomprehensible conflict. Concorde vessels reported reality distortions extending hundreds of thousands of kilometers from the engagement zone. Space itself seemed to fold and unfold. Light bent in impossible ways, and sensors recorded physics-defying phenomena throughout the region. On Earth, Reed watched the limited data with growing concern. Status report? She demanded. Her science officer shook his head in bewilderment. The battle exceeds our ability to analyze, General. We're seeing space-time fluctuations that violate every known law of physics. The only clear reading is that the Odyssey's systems are approaching critical stress levels. They can't maintain this for much longer. Within the Odyssey, Sharma knew they were reaching their limits. The ship groaned under conceptual pressures it was never designed to withstand, even with its enhancements. Crew members suffered increasing neural strain as they fought to maintain their fragmented perception across multiple reality states. We can't defeat it conventionally, she realized. We need to change our approach. Through her connection to the ship's consciousness, Sharma communicated her desperate plan. Instead of continuing to resist the silence's attempts to unravel the LSP, they would strategically allow partial breaches, but only into carefully prepared conceptual traps within the pocket. Vance, prepare phase transition matrices in sectors 7 through 12, she ordered. Zhang, calculate a dimensional fold that will loop the silence's erasure effect back upon itself when it breaches the designated zones. That's incredibly risky, Captain, Vance warned, even as he began implementing her instructions. If the fold collapses prematurely, the silence could erase us from existence before we can respond. We're out of alternatives, Sharma replied grimly. Execute the plan. The Odyssey reconfigured its defenses, deliberately weakening specific sections of the LSP while reinforcing others in a complex pattern. As predicted, the silence immediately surged toward the apparent vulnerabilities, its void-like tendrils penetrating the weakened boundaries. But instead of finding the ship's vulnerable systems, the entity encountered conceptual trap zones where its own reality-erasing properties were reflected and redirected through carefully calculated dimensional geometries. The silence began to experience what it had never before encountered, resistance from the very fabric of reality itself, reinforced by technologies beyond the understanding of any civilization in the Concorde. For a moment, the void that was the silence seemed to hesitate, its expansion halting as it encountered this unexpected defense. The Odyssey seized this moment of confusion to execute the final phase of Sharma's desperate plan, a complete reconfiguration of the LSP from a defensive bubble to a constrictive dimensional net. Collapsing the pocket, Sharma commanded, "All power to the conceptual binders." The LSP contracted sharply, compressing the portion of the silence that had breached its boundaries into an increasingly confined space where its ability to manipulate reality was progressively neutralized. Simultaneously, the Odyssey generated a powerful burst of transdimensional energy that severed the connection between the trapped portion of the silence and the main entity. With a reality-bending shudder that was felt across light years of space, the Odyssey completed its desperate maneuver. The fragment of the silence was not destroyed. Perhaps nothing could truly destroy such an entity, but it was contained and disconnected from its source, rendered inert within a specialized dimensional pocket that the ship then ejected into a parallel reality branch where it could do no harm. The cost was enormous. The Odyssey emerged from the confrontation severely damaged. Its transdimensional systems had been pushed far beyond their limits, parts of its structure permanently altered by exposure to contradictory physics. The ship's semi-conscious systems entered a healing hibernation, many functions shutting down entirely to preserve core integrity. The crew had suffered as well. Several members were lost during the reality fluctuations, their enhanced bodies and minds unable to withstand the strain of existing across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Dr. Vance had been partially merged with the ship's systems during a critical moment, his consciousness now distributed between his physical form and the Odyssey's quantum processors. Zhang's crystalline features had fractured in places, leaking energies from higher dimensions that slowly stabilized into new patterns. In the aftermath, the region of space where the battle had occurred was permanently scarred. A strange zone of altered physics remained, where light behaved unpredictably and time flowed at inconsistent rates. Ships would need to avoid this cosmic wound for centuries to come. The immediate threat had passed, but Captain Sharma knew this was merely the first encounter in a longer war. The main entity that was the silence remained out there, temporarily repelled but not defeated. It would return, perhaps wiser to their defenses, more determined in its hunger. The Concorde, witnessing the Odyssey's victory against an incomprehensible enemy, was profoundly shaken. The dominant political narratives collapsed overnight. Those who had demanded the ship's surrender now found themselves labeled as short-sighted at best, collaborators at worst. Marshal Kalin, once the voice of suspicion and hostility toward Earth, now faced severe criticism from his own government. "We were blind," admitted High Counselor Mesdara in an emergency session of the Concord Council. "While we engaged in petty politics, a threat beyond our comprehension nearly consumed us all. Without the Odyssey's intervention, the erasure would have continued unchecked." Ambassador Valorum, suddenly finding himself with unprecedented diplomatic leverage, carefully navigated the dramatic shift in power dynamics. Earth stands ready to establish new cooperative frameworks to defend against this threat, he offered. But we must acknowledge that none of our civilizations possess the knowledge or technology to face the silence alone. We require a fundamental transformation in how we approach galactic security. Tentative alliances began to form. The Xyler, practical despite their cultural pride, offered military resources to support Earth's defensive initiatives. The telepathic Elkarai volunteered to establish early warning networks, training their sensitives to detect the subtle psychic disturbances that preceded the silence's manifestations. The ancient Altheans opened their historical archives, searching for any mention of similar entities in their million-year recorded history. On Earth, General Reed consolidated humanity's new position of importance within the galactic community. With access to the Odyssey's revolutionary technology and the knowledge brought back by its crew, Earth rapidly advanced from being a relatively minor member of the Concorde to one of its most critical defensive assets. "We find ourselves with responsibilities we never sought," Reed told President Torres during a private briefing. The Odyssey and its crew represent capabilities beyond anything the Concorde has ever seen. Every member world now wants access to that knowledge. And what does Captain Sharma say about sharing these capabilities? Torres asked. Reed's expression darkened. That's the difficulty, Madam President. The Odyssey isn't staying. After completing essential repairs and recalibration in a hidden location outside the Sol system, the Odyssey prepared for departure. Not back to Earth or to the Concorde Central Worlds, but outward toward the galactic rim, or perhaps beyond, in a spaces unknown to any charted database. Sharma stood on the partially repaired bridge, looking out at the empty expanse before them. The viewports no longer showed conventional space. Instead, they displayed a complex overlay of multiple reality states simultaneously, a view comprehensible only to the ship's enhanced crew. The silence will return, she said to the ship's consciousness and the remaining crew. Stronger, more adapted to our defenses. We need time to recover fully, to understand more about ourselves and our enemy, and to prepare for the inevitable confrontation to come. Her face hardened with resolve, accepting the burden that had been placed upon humanity and specifically the Odyssey, reluctant guardians of a fragile reality against horrors beyond imagination. This battle was over, but the war had only begun. Set course for the outer darkness, she commanded. We have work to do.